Hey everyone! So I promised you guys that I would talk about what got me into YouTube, and today's the day.
What? Is that today? I know!
Normally, whenever I tell people how I got into YouTube, I abbreviate a lot, but because many of you have been wanting to know, I've decided to go ahead and give you an extended cut. I'm going to go into a ton of details that seem like they're unrelated to the idea of me getting into YouTube. However, I promise you, at the end, it will all make sense. So, it's hard to know where to start, but let's start whenever I was a little kid, like elementary school. I grew up in an art family, at least on my mom's side, and I don't really know my dad's side of the family, so my mom's side of the family was the only family that I knew. I inherited that talent for art. I am able to draw, I am able to color, and growing up, a lot of my friends were like, wow, this is really good. But the key difference between what I had and what they had, passion for what they did. It's not that I dislike drawing, it's just I like a whole bunch of things. Something else that you also need to know about my upbringing is that I am a Christian, and I'm not saying that as like,
oh yes, because I feel this way, because I think this way, you have to as well.
I'm simply saying this is the point of view that I came from, so that's also good knowledge. It always felt like, what place does God have for me? What are my talents? It's not to say that my sister was always put above me because, well, she had her overarching talent, which was art, which was drawing, and that fits so well with the family too. But the main thing that I liked to do whenever I was a little kid was read. I remember teaching myself how to read grade levels ahead just so I could read more books. And that's great, but I felt like I was not producing anything. What's the point of amassing knowledge if you don't apply it? And that was the way that I felt for many, many years, and I always felt kind of like a black sheep growing up. Skipping ahead to high school. Somewhere down the line, I quit really caring about that, and I just started pursuing all sorts of things that sounded fun whenever I was in even middle school too, but especially high school. I did do art class, but I was also in choir, I was in the science club, I was in the academic team.
Academic team was so fun.
I was in, honor society, also into running. I did enjoy gym class. There was no longer that feeling of, okay, well, I don't fit in with the family because I have so much that I have going, instead of caring about, what about this thing that I feel like everyone wants me to be? However, there was another problem in my life at this point. And that problem is, what am I going to do for college? You cannot get a degree in miscellaneous subjects. And I went through a whole bunch of ideas for what I could major in. Interior design, as some of you know, was my first major, but I also did consider art. I did consider writing in English, although a lot of people consider me to be extremely talented at writing, and that's great. However, it was, again, not my passion. And so I'm glad that I did not go for writing just to make everybody else happy. Fashion design, nutrition and dietary science, performing arts. Again, I'm pretty sure that there are some that I'm missing. But there were so many, and I was like, well, what is the thing that I want to do? I'm not sure. For many years in college, I struggled with that. But for a while, I was preoccupied with another experience that happened whenever I was 20. But I was considering the idea of getting baptized, off and on, off and on. One day, the book that I was reading, I'm not even sure if it had to do with the book or if it had to do with my own thought processes, and that just led one thing to the other, and it just kind of led to me in just a very crystal clear moment. Thought, it's time to get baptized. And it literally made me dizzy. I had to lie back down in the bed, and I was like, whoa, wait, what just happened? Crystal clear moment of conviction. That's unusual for me because I don't do that. One of the most analytical people, I will sit there and analyze something to death before I make a decision. I don't think I really get the paralysis by analysis, but I do analyze a lot before making a decision. So for me to just have this is what I need to do, and have that conviction all of a sudden so hard that it knocks me to the bed was unheard of. I prayed about it, continued thinking about it, and there was still that crystal clear conviction. Even whenever I thought about it and kind of like analyzed it, because I analyzed too much, it was still there. So, I went ahead and talked to one of the elders and got baptism training. The next year, whenever I was 21, I got baptized. March 5th, 2016. These all tie in. I promise there's a reason why I'm bringing this up. Then a few months later, I made a friend who later became my boyfriend. And he was a Christian, I guess, in the form of he was searching. He really wasn't sure where to go with his faith, but he knew that he wanted to get into some kind of Christian religion, but there were a lot of things that did not make sense. He grew up Catholic, and he just was like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that the Catholic faith is like nonsense or anything. I'm just saying that was his perspective of like, I don't get some of these doctrines. He also studied like the Baptist faith, and I'm pretty sure like Pentecostal he also maybe kind of learned about. And whenever he started learning about my faith and asking me tons of questions, one thing led to another. We began doing Bible studies together, and eventually he did convert in, and he, to my knowledge, is still in the faith to this day. I still see him around the Feast of Tabernacles sometimes. And looking back, I'm like, oh, it seems like there's a reason why I had that spark of it's time to get baptized when I had it. Hindsight is 20/20, and it's a good thing I listened to that. Now, also around that time, a little bit after, I would often take my childhood best friend to college with me so that she could hang out. She loves OU. She was my connection to many sorts of media. She was into gaming and anime and manga. We didn't have a computer that actually connected to the internet until I was about like 17 or 18. My parents did not like technology. They did not like the computer. I had only a few small brushes with the idea of YouTube. And even then, I didn't know that there were professional YouTubers out there. I thought, oh, okay, people just upload random stuff. It's kind of like AFV, but you can't make a living at it. That was my concept of YouTube. One day, this friend of mine, who also became friends with my best friend I made at college, was like, hey, I just downloaded a lot of videos from the 4th game in the series that they were into, and I decided to watch with them because I was between classes, and I saw...
Hello everybody, my name is Markiplier and welcome to Five Nights at Freddy's 4.
Now this was a pivotal moment for me. Not only did I become a die-hard Five Nights at Freddy's fan thereafter, and yes, I have like seen all of Markiplier's playthroughs of Five Nights at Freddy's. It is actually really sad. But also, it was my concept into the idea of, wait, there are professional gamers. You can do that? Huge revelation to me. But at this time, I also thought that you could only make it gaming, like Markiplier does. Not even a year later, the summer between my junior and senior year of college, which was 2017, and I started getting really obsessed with studying life hacks.
I love life hacks.
I was looking online and I would just Google them, and then finally I was like, let me go onto YouTube. I found a video that began like this. I was amazed at how many views that this YouTuber got. And if you haven't noticed, I mean, there's kind of a reason why I tended to veer toward 𝑤𝑭𝑛𝑗𝑖's work in the first place. Obviously, we both share a love of bright colors, if you haven't noticed. More so, her editing style was like, oh wow, I want to do something like that. And whenever I started out teaching myself, I did tend to borrow from her style until I developed my own style along the way. She was actually even a bigger inspiration than Markiplier was. You can make it in any field as long as you just have enough views. However, the problem that I ran up against in my own mind was so many people try to make it on YouTube. It never really crossed my mind for that reason as a viable option. I knew that whatever I did, I wanted it to be helping people. And I didn't want to be limiting myself and burning myself out on one thing, just one. What kind of a career uses so many different fields and combines them together? I don't know. All throughout college, I wasn't sure. The summer before my senior year of college was kind of turbulent for me because I didn't really know where I wanted to go in life, what I wanted to do in life, really lost. I also wasn't quite sure as a result what I should take as my electives, and I wasn't really looking forward to my first semester my senior year because I had wanted to take a business class, but they were filled. I just needed an elective. I had to make sure that I graduated on time. There were so many choices that were filled, and so I signed up at the last minute for a public speaking class. I was like, sure, why the heck not? That sounds putrid, but it'll be useful. Wasn't really looking forward to taking that. I wasn't looking forward to graduating and not knowing where I was going. There were a lot of things weighing on my mind. But it really helped that my boyfriend at the time, he let me borrow a book. If how-tos were enough, we'd all be skinny, happy, and rich. Do you ever have moments in your life where you hear something that you've heard 1,000 times before, but it finally really resonates with you? That was what this book did for me. The connection between intention and result. If you intend to get a certain result, I mean really intend, not just say, oh, I want this result, or say, oh yes, I tried that, but I couldn't get it. If you don't achieve the result of that intention, then you never truly intended it. The example that the book gave was, say you want to make $1 million in business, but if you don't achieve it, it means you put fear ahead of that goal, or you put your balanced lifestyle ahead of that goal, which isn't bad. It's just saying that was not your goal to make $1 million, your goal was to be balanced. Or you put personal comfort ahead of that goal. But if you really intend something, you will make it happen. And I was like, it just absolutely opened my eyes to what you could achieve whenever you really put your mind to it. And so I was pretty high on this notion. Now, all this, learning that you can make a career at YouTube, looking for a career that would encompass a lot more and give more opportunity, all this came together. It was a day that must have been early August, only like 2 weeks before my senior year of college. My sister and I were walking into our favorite restaurant in the mall. I was kind of thinking about all this, and I had another one of those moments that I had whenever I was like, oh, it's time to get baptized. That again made me dizzy. To this day, I remember where I was standing. I remember what I was looking at. I remember how it felt. It was so vivid. And it was, you need to get into YouTube. And I was like, what? It was not a case where I was like railing against it. I was, again, moment of clarity. This is what I need to do. I had never really had that thought consciously crossed my mind before. It was so far away from my mind because I had been raised with a very traditional mindset. You just go get a job and then you make immediate income. I was like, there can be something more to my life. Heck yeah! YouTube encompasses video editing. I didn't think that I was gonna like video editing, but it turns out I love it. Fashion and style, because obviously I have to be on camera. It is kind of performing arts. I mean, the way that I do it can be considered so. And then I'm getting to help people, which is ultimately what I want to do. And I get to teach psychology in a way that is applicable and fun for other people, which is something I totally stand behind. Make something that not only educates, but resonates. I get to hone in on my writing skills, which even though that was not my favorite thing, still, I knew that I had a talent for it. I could potentially get into other opportunities, make other types of content. I also enjoy dance. I enjoy singing. One of the first things that I remember thinking was, well, I guess I better get some technology and I'd better learn to make a video because I had never made a video in my life. But first things first, I had to get the technology to even practice making a video, and I didn't know how I was going to do it. How am I going to tell my parents about this? In particular, my dad. He's supportive of education, he's supportive of a job and making money, but something so tentative, I couldn't really just go by it myself because I did not have a job. Well, I did briefly whenever I was a freshman. However, I did not keep that job very long because I had such high grades in high school. I came out of high school with so many scholarships, so much financial aid, and you had to maintain a certain GPA to keep that. It was interfering with my ability to keep up high grades. because I didn't have to pay that much. My parents did go ahead and help me out. I had no need for a job, but I was not sure how I was going to get the equipment that I would need. I would have to ask my parents, in particular my dad, and I was not really sure how I was going to do that or pose that or explain that. It turns out I really didn't have to. Do you know that public speaking class that I mentioned that I did not want to take? Yeah, that's going to become really important. I go into that class, my first semester senior year. One of the first things that the professor said was, we're going to be recording ourselves because a big key to getting better at public speaking is being able to see yourself on camera. You're going to have some way to record yourself and some way to edit and upload the videos. What? All I had before was a very, not great Dell computer. I needed something specifically for video editing. I ended up getting my camera and my computer, which was a MacBook Pro. It turned out that that class that I was railing against and did not want to take, but was available to me, was exactly what I needed to start this journey. I was like, well, if the whole hitting me upside the head and being like, you need to do YouTube wasn't enough, it felt like there was also a little bit of oomph behind it. The fact that I had my equipment from something that I had not even wanted to take. It still blows my mind to this day. Now, it is possible that this is just a stepping stone to something larger, and I'm freely happy to accept that. But for the time being, it certainly seems like I'm supposed to be here, and that's why I don't want to make light of all that has happened. Being in a field that offers me so many opportunities to learn new things and try new things is exactly what I've been looking for. Even if it takes longer to make it in this field, I don't want to make light of my mission here, and from what you guys have told me, it seems like my work is making an impact. I know that I talk a lot about me making an impact on you, but it really does go both ways. I don't think I would have had the strength or courage to continue YouTubing, except for all the support that you guys give me, and just giving me feedback on what my work has meant to you is already encouragement enough to continue going. I think that's everything pertinent to the topic. The only other story that I could add to such a growth mindset, which is so different from the fixed mindset that I used to have, I've already given in this video. I will go ahead and let you guys watch that if you're curious about another episode that led me to this point. Anyway, guys, thank you for this chance to explain myself and explain a little bit more about me. Thank you for listening. You guys mean so much to me. Please don't forget that. You guys are the reason why I'm even here. 𝑻𝑯𝑨𝑵𝑬𝑹.